Hello everybody and welcome to the next episode of my HTML tutorial, and in this episode we will discuss the HTML ID attribute in more detail. So the HTML ID attribute is used to specify a unique ID for an HTML element. For example, h1 ID is going to be my h1, and we'll type here HTML IDs advanced, and I'm gonna open this. There we go. And then I'm gonna open my style sheet as well, and I'm gonna select the ID. So hashtag my h1, and let's set a background color of pink. Uh, this should work. Oh, background. There we go. Okay, there we go. And the biggest difference between an ID and a class is that we cannot have more than one element with the same ID in an HTML document. For example, if I was to add a paragraph with the same ID and some text, it does work, but in JavaScript this would cause some issues. So this is not suggested. For styling purposes, the classes are a better way if you are planning to style multiple elements at the same time. So the ID attribute is used to point to a specific style declaration in CSS, and it's also used by JavaScript to access and manipulate the element with the specific ID. And one thing to note is that the ID is case sensitive, so if I change this one to be a uppercase H, it's no longer going to work. So it's gonna be written exactly like in the style sheet and the other way around. And the ID name must contain at least one character. It can't start with a number, and it can't contain any white spaces. So yeah, the most important difference between IDs and classes are that class names can be used for multiple elements, and IDs can do that as well. But it's not advised to do so because that will cause some issues when we are writing JavaScript. Now I'm gonna give you a very useful example about IDs. So I'm gonna make an h1 element. This is gonna be chapter 1. And then I'm gonna make a paragraph and add some text. There we go. And I'm gonna copy this many times like this, and then I am going to number these accordingly. So I'm gonna be right back. Alright, so now we got a long page with many chapters as an example, and we can actually create a paragraph over here with an anchor element, and the href is going to be, this time it's going to be hashtag, let's say C10. Alright, and let's say over here jump to chapter 10. Then let's find chapter 10 from here and add an ID of C10. So the ID here is C10, and the href over here is C10. So when I click here, look what happens. I get jumped to this chapter over here, or whatever element you decide to put over here. I'm gonna make another example, paragraph and href, and this time it's gonna be jump to chapter 15. Let's add an href of hashtag C, short for chapter, and 15. Then let's find the h2 element with chapter 15 right here and add an ID of C15. So if I click this, it will take me to chapter 15. And it does, but there's not enough space on the bottom, so I could actually fix that. So let's go to the body and add some margin bottom of 1000 pixels. Alright, now when I click this, it will take me to chapter 15. So the margin bottom 1000 pixels makes the page longer, so I can scroll down over here. You can also use another HTML file, so I'm gonna create a new file, index2.html. I'm gonna make an exclamation mark, press tab, and I am going to make here some chapters as well. So I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna copy this text and I'm gonna copy it or paste it over here, and we can also go and, for example, let's set this to go to the index2 file. I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna make an h1 heading saying that this is the file number 2. Okay, so we can add an href of index2.html hashtag C15. So now what this link does, I'm gonna change the text, jump to chapter 15 on the second page. So what this link does, it will go to index2.html, which is right over here, and it will find the ID C15. So let's try it out. This is the first page. Let's go and click this, and it will take us to this other page. This is the file number 2. So this is a really useful trick to know. Now I can delete the index2.html, that was just an example. There we go. And open this. There we go. And I'm gonna keep hashtag 50 or C10 in here. And I'm gonna say that jump to chapter 10. Okay. The ID attribute will be very important in JavaScript, but this is pretty much what it does in HTML. So in summary, the ID attribute is used to specify a unique ID for an HTML element. The value of the ID attribute must be unique within the HTML document. Well, not necessarily if you are only using it for styling purposes, but if you are using it in JavaScript as well, then there's going to be some issues. And the ID attribute is used by CSS and JavaScript, like we know already. The value of the ID attribute is case sensitive, so you can't have any upper characters here if you don't use them in here. They're gonna be the exact same. And the ID attribute is also used to create HTML bookmarks like these. There we go. And JavaScript can access an element with a specific ID with the getElementById method. And I am going to talk about that in my JavaScript tutorial. Anyways, this is going to be the HTML IDs advanced. I hope you learned something new and I hope I'm going to see you in the next episode. Happy learning everyone and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.